this is my continuing discussion of this book right here. And the first thing I want to do is define the word subversive. What is a subversive? This is an individual that will either get a crowd together and then using that crowd he'll try to overthrow a government, or he'll become an integral part of a government in some attempt to undermine that government. Now you read about stuff like this overseas, particularly in Arab states, but you don't really read about that over here. Now just because you don't read about it over here doesn't mean that it could never happen. It just means that that is not something that normally happens in our part of the world. But to say something, just because something doesn't happen doesn't mean it can never happen. We don't have asteroids hitting our United States on a regular everyday basis, but that doesn't mean an asteroid couldn't fall to Earth. We saw that in Russia, didn't we? There you go. Alright, what does it mean to be diametrically opposed to something? Well, what that means is I am so diametrically opposed to paganism that they could shackle me and toss me in jail and I still would not condone paganism. That's how diametrically opposed I am to it. And you can't convince me otherwise. There you go. Now, what is a dyadic? Well, that's an interaction between a pair of individuals. Now, these would not be complete strangers. This would be more like a father and a son, or a teacher and a student, or a husband and a wife. Okay? In this kind of a situation, it'd be like a father and a son discussing things, and the son would be asking why, if he did some certain actions, that it would be wrong, it would be whatever, and then the father would stand there and say, well, this is the reason why we don't want you doing something. Let's take, for instance, smoking. So the son comes to the father and says, well, why is smoking so bad? And then the father would say, okay, smoking is so bad, and he'd list off a bunch of things that would show the son why smoking is so bad. Get the picture? Okay, what is a pedagogue? Well, a pedagogue is a very dull and very strict teacher. Okay? This would be sort of like what Ben Stein was when he starred in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Okay? Remember, he was going Bueller, Bueller, Bueller. Same type of thing. So, that's what pedagogue is all about. Now, what does it mean to be shamanistic? What is shamanistic? Okay? Now, these would be the kind of people that would pretty much enter into a trance to try to communicate with the spirit world, or they would enter into a trance to try to perform some kind of an exorcism or healing. You'll see this in churches sometimes. People will enter into these trances, and all of a sudden they'll be speaking some gobbledygook that you've never heard of before. Okay? And this isn't really a commentary on tongues, but that's kind of where this is leading into. Alright? So you kind of have to really watch out to see if they're speaking in tongues or if they are just blithering out a bunch of garbage that really has nothing to do with God. You have to put that to the test. You have to put that to the Bible test. Because let me tell you something. It is just as easy for a demonic spirit to enter a church as it is the Holy Spirit. Okay? I know it's really hard to believe, but a demonic spirit can walk into a church just as easily as the Holy Spirit. So you really have to put that to the test. And the Bible teaches such things. Alright? Now then, one of the things they were talking about in this book, Prophet and Teacher, was about a monarchy. And the Jewish monarchy had enough power that they could confiscate peasant lands for their political agendas. That's pretty bad. Okay? Now, the next question you have to ask yourself is, what is the tribe and clan structure of Israel? Do you know? We should leave an answer down here if you want to. Now, do you know anything about Bashan, Harmon, Bethel, Gilgal, Beersheba, or Wormwood? Maybe you should do some research on any of those things. Because if you know these things, this book starts to make sense. If you don't, the book makes no sense whatsoever. Now, I will try to cover these things in my next video. Alright? But I do want you to do some research. Leave some comments down below. Okay? Now, what about Deuteronomy chapter 17, verses 14 through 20? Isn't it ironic that here we have Moses at the end of his journey teaching people about a king that they didn't have yet and wouldn't have until King Saul came to be. He was already talking about what a future king of Israel would be like long before the Israelites had a king. Talk about prophecy. Moses and God already saw that Israel was going to have a king before they ever did. And they had little rules for this king before they even had a king. Isn't that interesting? Should be. So, get a chance, read Deuteronomy chapter 17, verses 14 through 20. I will tell you more in a future video. Stay tuned.